get to introduce our first speaker of the day. Super excited about this. Konrad Piercey is joining us this morning. Konrad's currently senior product designer for menu experience at Delivery Hero. He's been working as a product designer for the past 10 years. Started his journey actually here in the US of A. So high fives, Konrad. I feel ya. You're half American, you're half Polish, super diverse background there. You got a formal background in research psychology and human factors. So lots of really interesting things going on in Konrad's brain there that'll come out in this talk that we've got here. His product design history involves numerous startups and digital agencies, living and working in New York, Shanghai, Poland, and now residing in Berlin. So all over the world. Konrad, we're so excited to hear more about what you've got for us. You're going to be talking to us about design roadmaps for success.
Yes, thanks for that introduction, Katie. Hello, everyone. Yes, we're going to be talking about some learnings and specifically about what we're doing with design strategy here at Delivery Hero in Berlin. So should we just kick things off, Katie, and get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Cool. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I'm super excited to be here with you today. We're actually being presented from the ground floor, the entrance of Delivery Hero, the headquarters here in Berlin, Germany. And I want to tell you a few stories today. The first one starts off on a rainy day, actually in August 13th, 2012, in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, New York City. I was working for a small upcoming startup, a subscription service called Bespoke Post. I was very young. It was my first real job. From that day forward, I was able to see the impact great product designers have on the world. And everybody knows that feeling when you get when you use a crappy app. It's hard to articulate. It's really hard to put to words. But you know it when you feel it. Frustration because it's not letting you check out, or you can't find that product you're looking for. Maybe the service is buggy, or perhaps the whole website is just confusing on how to navigate. That feeling the product leaves with you will affect you the rest of your day, even if you don't realize it. And also it affects, obviously, the perception of that brand. So now come here 10 years later, after traveling the world to work with a wide range of companies, I've now found myself working on a product bigger than anything else. At Delivery Hero, we're building the future of food delivery. And with my amazing teams and colleagues at foodpanda, a Delivery Hero company, we're imagining a better, brighter future for delivery services.
Hey, Konrad, just going to step in really quick. I don't know if you were just about to blow our minds with what you're going to show on screen. Excellent, cool. We were just seeing a black screen, wanted to make sure we were good.
Yeah.
All right, great.
We're all good. No bugs yet. No bugs yet.
No bugs yet. We'll take it.
Yeah.
Too early for that.
Too early. Well, I want to tell you a bit of a different story now about the first time I ever cooked a big meal for my family or friends. I had planned for something like this. It was going to be delicious, you know, mouth-watering turkey, gravy, mashed potatoes, stuffing, you know, hot bread on the table. It was going to be a great dinner. But unfortunately, it turned out something like this. The rolls came out way too burnt. They actually came out also very late in the meal. We ended up eating them for dessert. Half of them were thrown away. And of course, the turkey wasn't quite ready. It looked like this, not the previous picture we saw before. So the meal didn't go at all how I was hoping for. But, you know, this is also about strategizing a meal and strategizing a design strategy. As with cooking a large meal for family or friends, crafting a great design strategy for your team takes planning, prep, and a steady hand. In our talk today, we're going to be discussing 11 key points which you should be thinking about as you develop your team's design strategy. Some points might be obvious, others will hopefully be eye-opening. But before we go into the depths of crafting a strategy, let's define what we mean by design strategy. A design strategy comes in many shapes and flavors: interface design, core UX, information architecture, motion, even visual asset definition. There are many ways to tackle these topics, but for this presentation, we're referring to a global and holistic vision for your product. For me and my team, that means a vision and design strategy the menus of Delivery Hero. To know your design strategy, you must understand your product strategy. These go hand in hand and cannot be separated. If you were to try and create one without the other, it would be like trying to build a bicycle with one hand tied behind your back. It's just not going to be possible. You must be aware of the vision, design goals, and initiatives that will achieve the larger business pillars. On top of that, there's the customer and their goals, right? Their needs and pain points. This is how we think about design strategy within the menu squad of Delivery Hero. And I think this can easily be applied to any organization. Creating a holistic UX and UI strategy for a segmented product like Food Panda at Delivery Hero, it brings added challenges. That's now aligning your independent strategy to the global product strategy and the overarching company vision. And with companies as large as Delivery Hero, this requires a special type of ingredient, but one we are all familiar with: connectedness. Connectedness, that's the communication, alignment, and awareness, a realization of your product's many touch points, both internally from a technical perspective and externally from a user experience point of view. It's easy to reference and talk about connectedness, but it's actually hard to do. It's not effortless. And yes, it is sometimes boring, but this connectedness is most critical, more than ever, especially for our days of Zoom calls and remote working. So our first point today, use existing resources. In my 10 years working in design, I have never seen a great design strategy form out of thin air. It's rarely spontaneous. Much of the time, it's backed and fueled by concepts that have lived previously. If you recognize this first point, I think you're well on your way to making the most of your time. Digging into those files and projects and deliverables your team and coworkers have previously been working on. This is a great place to start for everyone. Previous team explorations are one of the best places of inspiration. One of the toughest parts of getting started is just through sifting through documentation. We at Delivery Hero have a lot of repositories of information relating to the product. As an example, digging through Google Drive, it uncovered a lot of asynchronous previous research from my squads throughout the company. If you work in a large team, I would say focus your efforts on tracking down previous presentations, things like sprint plannings, retrospectives, quarterlies, even stakeholder C-level vision decks, any creative product exercises which yielded insights on how the team has been thinking about the future of your product. What you don't want to happen is for you to repeat efforts of the team. Alternatively, you also don't want to create a strategy that is not in the same line of thinking as your squad or tribe. It's foolish to build a strategy which doesn't incorporate that larger company and business goals that we talked about before. And at Delivery Hero, it's a large business, so we have overarching pillars for product strategy success of the business and its applications. When you start to formulate a strategy, it's necessary to ensure a very clear alignment of those global business and product mission statements. You want to leverage these existing strategies and business goals, not work against them. The strongest strategies, the strongest design strategies, they're going to build on top of these existing company fundamentals, taking them a step further in execution and detail. If you're forming a generalized design strategy for your team right now, and it looks like that strategy is going to be fully realized by the end of the year, you're already failing. Creating a great design strategy for your team involves thinking many quarters ahead. I'm talking about 4, 8, 12 quarters ahead. This strategy should not need to be rewritten after 6 months. It should be your guiding light over the next few years. Your strategy will, of course, adapt and mold as your product continues to grow and your team flourishes, but the core principles of your strategy should maintain their foundation. Now, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with RICE scoring, but this is how we help our squads and our team members in Delivery Hero think quarters ahead. And it requires some amount of prioritization, and that's what RICE scoring is helpful for. It's one way we're able to think farther into the future about our tasks. And this is a super useful tool for any squad with a major amount of backlogged work and constant incoming new initiatives, rice scoring is used to create a scoring system to better understand what initiatives really deserve focus and prioritization. In Delivery Hero, if we ever feel like we're not confident in the effect of some new experience or design change to the platform, we will reference and check our rice spreadsheet to see where that initiative falls in the spectrum of other tasks. Using the rice document is also a good piece of leverage for convincing stakeholders of the impact of any new work your team is hoping to dig into. I'm going to quit out of this application before it drives us all crazy here. Of course, we love a good online screen share. Something always happens. Know your secret sauce. I like this one. This is actually one of my favorite points of today. And similar, like cooking the large meal I mentioned previously, the best dinners are ones that have that secret sauce. The best meals have that secret sauce. And they focus on a single main dish or main dishes. For the time being, let's not talk about desserts just yet. I know everyone here at Amuse, I'm sure, loves their sweets, but we're not going to dig into that. No, having a focus on a centerpiece, which is what we call in the US our main dish, it helps bring the whole meal together and makes it seem well organized and balanced. As with your design strategy, you need to clearly define those special ingredients in your centerpiece. The centerpiece in your strategy should be an anchor point that all the other elements are attracted to and pair nicely with, like turkey and gravy or salty and sweet. Finding your centerpiece is going to take some time and refinement. You might not get it right on your first try, but don't go further into your design strategy without knowing what this is. To find your centerpiece, look at how your product is balanced. For the menu of foodpanda, we need to balance the needs of vendors and customers. Vendors want to have control of how their brand and how their menu is presented to users. But on top of that, we also have users who have their own preferred way of viewing a restaurant menu. Sometimes these vendor needs and customer needs don't always match up perfectly. Think about a restaurant that wants to promote a new burger it has launched. But for a customer that never eats burgers at any restaurant, why would they want to see that on the menu? We have to create a safe place and an inspiring place for both customers and vendors. Finding this balance is what it's all about. Your centerpiece and secret sauce is ensuring that salty sweet balance is just right. On menu, we know that restaurants want users to find something that inspires them on their menu, something that speaks to them on an individual level. Each customer is unique. We could think about some of these different topic points weighted against each other. User expectations versus novel design techniques. If anyone here is familiar with the Nielsen Norman, the famous UX research group, you'll know that they teach that to create the most usable interface, your best bet is just to recreate the most common experience users are most familiar with. This will ensure a majority of users understand how to use your product because they've used many other products like that. However, if you go down this route, you will also create the most bland and ununique product in the marketplace. So think about this balance. Another one is company KPIs and user experience. Incentives inside foodpanda are a huge part of our product experience, especially in Asia. However, we cannot let that lead our entire product strategy. We also have to weigh the impact of the end user experience. Putting incentives, discounts, and vouchers on every screen would definitely increase awareness, but it also would take up valuable screen real estate. We need to make sure we focus on the core user journey, making sure our users are flowing through the app without too many distractions. The last one here, growth versus stability. So investing time in adding new technologies and interactions versus perfecting the current app experience. Well, compared to young, fast-moving companies, and then companies like Delivery Hero, there's a shift of production tempo, moving from failing fast more toward ensuring pixel perfection and highly usable product experiences. At a certain scaling point for businesses, it's not worth implementing new features if the old ones are still broken. For early stage startups, it's more acceptable as you still need to find that product market fit. At foodpanda, we consider the balance of all these topics. It helped us to find a centerpiece and a sauce that pairs nicely with our ingredients, our products, our users. To get started in your own team, I would say make a list of potential ingredients that could be combined to make your secret sauce, then think about how that sauce is paired to your centerpiece, your core product experience. After you think you have made a list of possible focal points for the design strategy, your next step is the boil down. My mom was always careful to teach me at a young age to wash my food, to boil out any bacteria before cooking, right? It's the safe way to cook food. You should also boil down your strategy to its most core principles. Keep it clean. Boiling down to the most core elements of your strategy will help others to better understand what you're trying to build and why it matters. As with menu at foodpanda, we boiled down to a single phrase and the core elements of our user experience and user interface approach. Help users make better decisions faster. This is the guiding light for our design strategy. This, our product strategy and vision statement, it leads us to success. We know it's hard for users to decide what they want to eat, especially when looking at long lists of food. Every user remarked that they wanted to be helped in making a decision on what to buy. We've done lots of user research on this in the menu squad. And our previous strategies were too focused, too granular. Sometimes they were also the opposite. Strategic pillars were too vague to ever make use of. Things like seamless ordering. Well, seamless ordering as some sort of vision statement or some sort of facet of our product strategy. What does seamless even mean? Also, create menu search filters or create better filtering. Well, that's way too specific. That's not a design strategy to create filters. Help users make better decisions faster. This can be summarized by a single image, actually. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a menu like this. It doesn't have to be from a Chinese restaurant. It can be from any physical restaurant you go to. You open up their menu and you see something like this. How does this help you make a decision? We need to better guide users to fulfill their wants, to find something unique, and to do it as quickly as possible. This vision statement, our centerpiece, well, we used it to help define our secret sauce ingredients. After we boiled down our basic principles, this is where we landed. High quality, large format imagery and video assets. We also wanted to nest non-critical information and guide the user to achieve major tasks like deciding what to add to cart or completing an order. Also, we wanted to build hyper-curated menu experiences for each user. The personalities of each user matters here. And lastly, we simplified the product persona variants to just 3 user types. With our guiding product strategy statement, that one-liner sentence that I shared with you guys before, and these 4 basic principles, which were our secret sauce, we were able to easily communicate to all team members, both within the menu team and our associated partnering squads, what we are trying to build and why it mattered. The best way to understand this and to test your strategy statement, well, can you explain it to your grandmother or perhaps your kids? If you can't explain it to one of those groups, it's not going to work. The strategy should be simple and straight to the point. Okay, but let's take a pause and remember our definition of design strategy. Does anybody recall? A global and holistic vision for your product. And that's going to help your team stay focused on what's most important for the success of the product. Our principles and our vision statement do exactly this. Part of that strategy was ensuring we simplified an understanding of who our users are and what matters to them. I mentioned about our 3 simplified user types just a moment ago. Well, the simplification of user types is different for every product and industry, but the main goal of user personas are generally the same: to help a broader audience within your organization wrap their head around who your product is being built for and the main user journeys your product needs to support. We simplified down from over a dozen hyper-specific user personas within Delivery Hero, down to just 3 core user types for the menu team: known, unknown, and X. Known here stands for a user that comes into the app mostly knowing where they want to eat, what they want to eat, sort of when they want to eat, the more known variables about ordering. Unknown user, on the other hand, comes in maybe not even knowing for sure that they plan to make an order. And even if they do think they plan to order something on our app, maybe they have no idea what type of food. Or let's go one level deeper. Maybe they know the restaurant they want to order from, but they don't know which dish, which food item. So we have known and unknown. And then lastly, my favorite, X. X is the X factor, and it actually applies to both known and unknown. The X factor is a user that finds something better. And that can be a user who already comes in the app knowing they want tacos from their favorite taco restaurant down the street, to the user who doesn't at all know what they want in the app, but they think they've found something, and then they find something better. That better could be because it is delivered faster, better because they saw a food image that inspired them and they'd like to order that now instead of the first thing they had in mind. Maybe it's cheaper, maybe there are discounts or vouchers, but they've changed their mind to order something better. And simplifying down to these three user types really cleared it up for our stakeholders on our personas and our users on which we needed to solve for. Don't play it safe. If there's one thing that plagues designers and their organizations, it's unfortunately the lack of imagination, the lack of vision. A great design strategy should be inspiring, not only for your end users, but for your team building the product. Don't let the size of your organization or the bureaucracy scare you into settling for less. You can achieve such ambitious goals. Can you achieve such an ambitious design strategy? Yes. Will it take longer? Also, yes. The teams that I've come to meet in my industry are some of the smartest people in their fields. But it's important not to forget. Don't underestimate the opportunity that awaits those bold enough to take a bite. But you've got to be willing to take that first bite. There's a massive opportunity in every product space, not only food delivery, to build something truly special, but it takes bold personalities and risk-taking to get there. No one can do it alone. It takes strong cooperation and working together. So try to be patient in your own processes. Big change often doesn't come right when we want it to. So I'm going to take a quick break here. I don't know how many of you have fallen asleep so far yet in the audience. And since I can't see emojis on the Zoom call, I'll presume that only about half of you have fallen asleep. Okay, so that leads me to my next point about working together. Communicate constantly. When I was planning my big family dinner, I was excited about the apple pies, that big mouth-watering turkey, but I didn't forget to keep in touch with my guests. Remember, you're not cooking a TV dinner for one. The meal isn't only about you. Your guests have their own lives, and things are constantly changing. Maybe their schedules got moved around, and the time you originally wanted to make the dinner is no longer available to many of the attendees. As you formulate the core principles and structure of your design strategy, you'll obviously need to keep the related partners of your plans closely tied to the starting process. Don't forget that most of the unknown should be worked out at the beginning. Some of the things that worked well for us on my teams at Delivery Hero were tracking a list of stakeholders. So team members come and go, so it's critical to know who's attending to which part of the application. It's not something you'd expect if you come from mostly working with startups, but big orgs like Delivery Hero require this type of stakeholder tracking. One-on-ones are also an extremely valuable way of keeping your finger on the pulse of your teammates who are designing separate parts of the application. Make sure that you find time in your schedule to catch up with them. For those meetings, set a specific tone at the start that you want to learn how to better your cooperation with them and their respective squad mates. Open up the conversation to learning and listening how you can build something better together. That communication will allow you to spot potential conflict in your product strategy much earlier on. A specific example for you, for us at Menu, one of our surprises was the lack of quantity and quality imagery for vendors. Also, for the images we did have, they weren't going to fit into the new aspect ratios we wanted to support for our strategy. Coordinating with our content team, in Delivery Hero, it helped us to recognize and flag the areas we would need to develop before our strategy could be fully realized. A quick side story, some interesting facts about any food-related platform. Eventually, you'll have to deal with ingredient tracking, and tracking an endless number of ingredients and matching those to images is extremely hard to get right. It requires a lot of manual labor. Before Delivery Hero, actually, in Shanghai, I was helping a team create a different food delivery experience, and they needed to manually create branded food image representations for over 300 individual ingredients. One by one, they would create the image assets in Photoshop. Wild and totally unscalable. I've learned many things outside of my direct domain of menu by focusing more on lateral team communication, not just relating to images. From data science teams to our back-end vendor management platform, and the differences in our delivery types. I would say get excited to learn more about the inner workings of your product, and you'll build a much more polished user experience. No matter how much you plan, you might not get things right on your first try. The strategy might be lacking in a few areas. Maybe you forget that you didn't talk to one of your teams and their logic ties directly into your feature or functionalities. You'll probably have to adjust in the beginning of strategy formation. When I hosted my last big dinner for friends in New York, I told them that what I was planning on cooking, steaks with potatoes. It's a dish I often make. It's amazing, trust me. If you ever come to Berlin, let me know, I'll cook you some steak and potatoes. Well, a friend reminded me actually that their girlfriend was vegetarian. I needed to come up with this smaller alternate dish to accommodate some guests, but no worries. I was actually super happy to know that information earlier rather than later after everyone arrived. With your strategy, you might find out things that you never knew before, learning more deeply how your part of the product works and is intertwined with other parts. That's hopefully should be part of the fun. This also applies to stakeholder buy-in. If you think you can just create an amazing strategy by yourself and see that strategy to success, I'm sorry to say it's not likely. Talk to your dinner guests, see what they like, see what they don't like. Are they allergic to anything? Do they favor some tastes over others? All of this knowledge is going to help you build a much more convincing strategy that speaks to all your managers and stakeholders. Okay, so on to deliverables for a second. There's two examples of documentation I want to show you. One is better than the other for pioneering a design strategy. Let's take a look at the first one here. See, it has some imagery, some bullet points there. And here's the second one. So one more time, here's the first, and here's the second one. Don't focus on the UI. It is a mistake. UI details making those beautiful designs pixel perfect, image here, button there. A short reminder, but also important to note, when you're starting off, beginning the process, building your strategy, if you find yourself focusing a lot on the details of the user interface design, take a break and step back. This slide showcases some of the documentation from our design specifications created later in the process of our UI build. These were never used to drive our design strategy. These specs came much later in the process. No design strategy should ever comprise of specifications for the interface. The strategy is a guiding light, not a diagram of how to build it. As it may seem obvious to all of you, it's impossible to cook a large meal without knowing your ingredients. In the US, when we gather for Thanksgiving, one of our biggest dinner holidays, one of the important parts of the celebration is choosing the recipes and understanding the ingredients for each dish. By knowing the ingredients, you're able to calculate what you have and what you need to buy, what's already available, and what you need to collect. As with a holistic design strategy, you also need to understand and collect your ingredients. For our menu strategy in Pandora, it was important to know what customer data we had available so that we could build curated menu selections for each user. Unfortunately, much of what we wanted to do wasn't available yet, but understanding the content and recommendation limitations gave us a very clear picture for what we could accomplish and what we couldn't given the roadmap and time frame. For all of you guys in the audience, these other ingredients could be things like separate parts of the UI, which might need to be researched, designed, or built entirely from scratch. So remember our ingredients and principles for menu? You can see that start to come to life in something as simple as our new restaurant header. Boring, but it is important. The restaurant header is how we organize the critical restaurant information at the top of the screen once the user enters the menu and needs to identify the vendor. Nesting info and helping to guide the user more efficiently to important segments of the UI. Guiding the user to most important info like restaurant proximity, restaurant ratings, delivery type and delivery time, things like discounts and promotions. These things are huge in Asia, so knowing about the ingredients and how they're tied to specific UI elements was part of our process here. We needed to work and organize with a lot of different wonderful teams other than Menu Squad to understand how our ingredients, things like restaurant ratings, delivery type and time, we need to understand how our ingredients affected those other squads and how their ingredients affected us. All of this so we could build a header that could be usable by more than just our vertical in restaurant delivery. Foodpanda also delivers groceries. Additionally, our app also supports the experience of sitting down at a restaurant. How was all of this going to work with a single header format? That's something we had to accomplish. Number 10 here, know your setting. When you plan a dinner, you often start asking yourself with, well, where's this going to take place? That's probably a pretty good question to be asking yourself. Knowing the environment of where the dinner will be hosted tells you lots of things like the equipment available or information about the physical space and resources available at the site of the venue. When you build your strategy, it's valuable to know your setting as well. Educate yourself on the marketplace of your product, your competitors, the movement of the industry. All of these factors will help you create a strong strategy that doesn't fade or crumble as the product evolves, as your product gains weight. As the marketplace grows, your strategy should naturally take advantage of these changing variables. Twice a year, I plan to reassess the state of the industry for my own squad and teams. So leading the menu team, sometimes we really want to care about understanding some things in very specific domains. Privacy is one big one, obviously. How have users' habits and perceptions of privacy grown since the last time we took assessment of our industry? Privacy is a complex topic now, and more than ever, the average user really wants to know what you're doing with their data and how you're keeping it safe. So here at Foodpanda and Delivery Hero, we have to really stay on top of this. Health, a big thing, as you can imagine, as we deliver more food to over 15 million people every single day. That's how many we're delivering to right now, and it's growing drastically. As food delivery becomes more of a core fundamental to the modern way of life, it's a big responsibility for us at Delivery Hero. We need to think about how we can take care of this delicate industry and all of our customers. Helping the average person eat better, healthier, and more nutritious meals. This is a goal we want to have, not just to sell more food. Budgeting, well, spending money on prepared meals and groceries is a part of a normal person's budget. And it's critical that Foodpanda starts to think about how we can create better financial health for customers when it relates to budgeting for meals and eating out. Lastly, well, new technologies, things like AI, voice assistants, and wearables. How can we harness the birth of these new technologies and bring better, more cohesive experiences to our users? We think about this at Delivery Hero. We also try to think beyond the capabilities of today and think more about the possibilities of tomorrow. Let's take a second to remember, just because you can talk to your walls in the apartment, telling Siri or Google to do commands, it might not be bringing us more sanity, but maybe it's making us more crazy. Just because you can merge with the new technologies doesn't mean you always should. And lastly, to wrap up here, guys, the belief starts with you. If there's one last thing that I'm trying to note here today at the end of this talk, it's that creating a strategy starts with a belief that it's possible to build something better. Don't let others discourage you from your vision, but also one must be aware not to be ignorant to the information coming from your team. Let this guide and grow your vision, but it should never break the core principles, the main ingredients which hold the strategy together. If you lose faith in the strategy, no one else will be there to catch the pieces. It's up to you to believe in it from start to finish. Be the guiding light, embody the strategy, live it, sleep it, eat the strategy. Yes, we just discussed 11 learnings for creating a great design strategy. I hope this has been a fun talk for everybody, and I hope you've enjoyed it, except for those who fell asleep during my talk, which I'm sure some of you did. I will remember that. Now find some friends and cook a wonderful meal together. Just try not to burn anything. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Konrad. Nonsense. I should be the only one that potentially fell asleep since it's so early here, and you had me from the beginning. I will say, though, I think I might be speaking for everyone. Not cool to show all that mouthwatering food, but I totally get it. Food's your jam. You get it, Jim? Clearly, I super appreciated all of your food metaphors that you had throughout your presentation. So thank you so much. One thing I wanted to mention before we jump into some Q&A, we've got some really great discussion going on in the Q&A chat. So thanks so much to all of our audience. Keep popping your questions in there. Would love to see what we can get in front of Konrad while we have him here. Just kind of adding my own point before we jump into this, I'm particularly on a team that's working on fall planning for our 2022 goals. And I love how you mentioned pulling in all those different artifacts that you've generated throughout the year, the different plans and business strategies and models and things like that. What's worked really well for us, clearly that's not only a well-rounded place to start, but it brings others into the conversation as well. It helps business, engineering, marketing, all those folks really help buy into this notion of design talking, and helping to guide this broader story that you're creating for the strategy rather than just a list of features that you want to deliver. So really cool stuff. Before I jump into a couple questions here, reminder to pop over to the poll tab. It'll be in the panel on the right. We want to hear how helpful this topic was for you. Obviously, Konrad, fantastic speaker. We're hoping that you take away some great stuff from this. I know I will. And again, clearly, lots of great questions coming in. So Konrad, I don't think people were sleeping. All right. Up first, we have if design strategy is a global and holistic vision for your product, how is that any different from product strategy? So design strategy versus product strategy, especially when that strategy could potentially be very vague. How do you handle that on the design side?
Yeah, they go one on one together. That's a great question, and I get that question asked a lot. And honestly, if you ask different designers, different product leadership, they will tell you different things. I think there's not one firm agreement across the industry where you draw the line between product strategy and design strategy. I would say in my history of working with over half a dozen startups and about the same number of agencies, including running my own, I've found that a design strategy and a product strategy share many common elements and pillars. So the only thing maybe different about a design strategy is that it focuses a bit more on the end user pain points and goals, where a product strategy is a little bit more about the business fundamentals and how that's going to lead, to more revenue, things like that.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like they would go really well hand in hand too, the one kind of helping to explain and add context to the other. Kind of expanding on that, suppose we have leadership changes after a year or so of this product starting. What happens then? You can use maybe they're coming in expecting to hear about that product strategy and maybe a little surprised to hear the design element of that. What are some different inputs on that strategy that designers can give to bring that new leadership along with us?
Yeah, maintaining visibility, part of an elongated design strategy, is one of the hardest things to do. And I'm still, even in my own domain, working on perfecting my own process for that. And a lot of it is about maintaining visibility and being the advocate for that strategy. Because of course, if you are the one, if you're that leadership producing the strategy or owning it, then it is up to you to be the advocate, be the speaker for it. Always keep people focused on what the end goal is, why it's important, why that design strategy matters, and what you're trying to build, right? Always, once a month, like reminding the top key people within your domain or your key stakeholders, like, remember, guys, this is our product strategy. This is how, how far we've come in the last month or 3 months or 6 months. This is, again, still our goal. Maybe this is how it's adapted or changed a little bit, because of course, as I said in my talk, it's going to adapt, it's going to change a little bit, but hopefully those core fundamentals of the product strategy stay the same. So if new leadership comes in, have an hour sit-down meeting, really talk to them about why this strategy formed the way it did, the research that was conducted previously, which led to some of the learnings, which brought you to this point with hopefully your secret sauce and your vision statement.
Absolutely. Nope. I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, and so extending that even further, how do you put how directly do you communicate your strategy to your clients? Like you want them to be, excited about the things that are coming down the pipeline for, the next, 6 months, a year, 3 years. So how do you kind of jazz them up about that without maybe necessarily committing to things that you might not be able to actually deliver on, allowing that flexibility?
Yeah, the flexibility. So one important thing to note is that and I think that maybe some things that people just maybe starting off in their defining their first product strategy will struggle with is articulating how detailed it should be, because obviously things will change, things will grow, but it will be a sort of a moldable goo at the beginning. That's the best way I can describe the product strategy, is as you're formulating it. We didn't create help users make better decisions faster within a week. No, that was over a quarter did we develop that as our product vision statement, our design strategy statement. And then of course, underneath that, our 4 pillars, which I mentioned. Those pillars, you have to think about those in the context, as I said, many quarters. So think no matter, if we open up and start serving a new country, or we acquire another food delivery company, which we often do at Delivery Hero, how will that potentially change the product? Or if we start a new vertical, a new product initiative, some sort of new business initiative within Delivery Hero, how will that potentially affect the design strategy? So you want to think broadly, but then also, once you think you have a good formation, a good foundation of that, then think more, I would say more detailed, more granularly about, okay, well, with this vision statement and these ingredients, these 4 pieces, for us that made our secret sauce, well, how does that translate directly to some UI fundamentals, or what is that going to look like actually when we put pencil to paper, or when we open up our design applications? How does that translate to some actual change to the product? So thinking broadly, many quarters ahead, how that could potentially break the strategy or change it. And then once you think you're in a good space there, you narrow down and think, okay, now what does this look like as, an update to the design in 6 weeks? And also, what does this look like as an updated design 2 years from now? Where do we want to be?
Oh, absolutely. I can totally see too, being able to tell that story, that design portion of that strategy. If you're able to tell it as a story, you're not exactly necessarily committing yourself anything, but instead, kind of just this goal, this, maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's a sentiment that people have, something that they're generally able to accomplish, around, what they'll see the next year. So really cool. All right, we got more questions flowing. This is great. This is an interesting kind of sidestep here. Thinking about the sustainability aspects of delivery, kind of how do you consider that when you're thinking through your design and product strategies? Things like packaging waste, pollution, food waste. What are some of the things that you do to make sure that you're keeping that in the forefront?
Yeah, sustainability is a massive part of Delivery Hero's product focus, and we have whole teams dedicated to that, ensuring a healthy product not only for her users but the environment. So we do have things like automatically disabling your utensils, right? So you can save on that, reuse utensils at home or at the office. And even small things like that make a huge difference. And having the user manually toggle on accepting utensils that they want that in their order when the food is delivered. At Menu, we think about sustainability a bit differently. We think more about how do we sustain a nice relationship between the vendors, the restaurants, and the customers. Sustainability, part of more packaging and stuff like that, is a different part of the organization, so I can't comment too much on that.
Totally, that's completely understandable. But really cool that you've got some of that, kind of built into the system already, that a user themselves can kind of take some of that into their own hands. So love that. Kind of a more tactical extension to that, involvement with your vendors and whatnot. Where do you source those ratings?
The ratings for the restaurants?
Yes.
Yeah, the ratings for the restaurants come directly from the users. And I can tell you guys a sneak peek about something about the industry, but rating systems are really hard to do because obviously you don't want people trolling those rating systems or leaving vulgar language or sexist, racist comments on the platform. And there's some automation you can do to that. But yes, all of our ratings and rankings come directly from individual user contributions.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I can imagine that that's really difficult. That's particularly topical to, a lot of what we've talked about and what we will be talking about today, with that, kind of that element of inclusive design, building a safe environment for people to give, honest feedback, and to, for the, consumers of the feedback to be able to trust what they're reading there. So yeah, great stuff. Okay, so popping back to design strategy, how do you enable your teams to be able to use and really kind of internalize that design strategy?
Yeah, well, the design strategy, because it is somewhat of a vision statement and then those underarching pillars, they should be able to be imagined in individual, unique ways by each participant of your design team. So they need to understand more like the definition behind those pillars. So, I listed our 3 or 4 ingredients there of nesting complex information or guiding the user. One way I would commonly onboard a new designer to our team is I would give examples of how we're already doing that, or some new things we're bringing to the platform which embody those core principles of the design strategy, so that they see exactly, okay, well, once we start developing something and we want to double check to make sure this is really leading us toward the right path, how have we done it before using those same principles for some other mechanism?
Absolutely. And that, obviously very important because a lot of the designers may not be involved in some of those conversations. So a great thing to consider as you're not only, kind of selling the design goals up the chain, but also bringing them back down to the boots on the ground as well. Okay, so I've got one more here for you. You have gotten a lot of love for those really cool animations and graphics that you had in your presentation today. So a little bit of a more tactical thing, but can you tell us, is there any software, any sort of resources that we can use to get that Konrad magic in our own presentations?
In your own presentations? Well, I will tell you that if you're giving a live talk, there should be very little words on the screen with you. It's all about listening to the speaker. Hopefully they have something interesting to say. Hopefully I had something interesting for you guys today. Hopefully. What magic? That's a good question. I would say try to make it your own, find a way to use your uniqueness, your individuality as a person, as a human, to bring some flavor to that. So yeah, try to incorporate just some unique things about your own personality into the presentation, and I think it will grow great.
Absolutely. Sometimes maybe this isn't the best thing, but sometimes when I'm putting my live presentations together, I kind of hope that it's not going to be something that would be very useful just looking at a PDF of the slides afterwards, because it's got that dialogue that brings it to life in the actual chat itself. So great stuff. All right, Konrad. Well, we are almost out of time. I want to go ahead and say just thank you so much for joining us. This was really, really great.